Hi, welcome to the Property Show. I'm Jayashree Kurup. I'm editor MBTV. And today we're talking about how global funds are interested in Indian stressed assets. Is this a time of opportunity? Discussing this with us is Anuranjan Mohnot. He's the MD and CEO of Lumos, Alternate Investment Advisors. There's Sudeep Singh, founder and CEO MPowered, and Bhavna Juneja, who's co-founder MPowered, and Santosh Agarwal, CFO of Alpha Corp. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, let's start with Santosh. Santosh, when you talk about Indian stressed assets, what is the interest in investments into the last mile funding of stressed assets so that they can go through to completion?
Jesse, there is a lot of interest in the stress funds from an investor perspective. The reason behind is the cycle of the investment is very short in comparative to what other investments is being done in the real estate, where the investment cycle is not lesser than 4 to 5 years. In the stress assets, your cycle could be as good as 2 to 3 years. So the investors are able to realize the money at a faster pace so that they get a higher IRR on their investments. Thereafter, they could see something on ground. The day investor comes in, they are able to see something on the ground. Yes, these are the approvals, these are the projects, this is going to deliver, these are the sales, these are the receivables, so that there are many things which attracts an investor. An investor is very much interested to see where the money is going on and what is the return on this, which is very much visible on the stress assets. Yes, he has to evaluate the project in a proper manner and he has to see what are coming out of the project.
Let's take it through to Anuranjan. Anuranjan, when you talk about stressed assets, the interest in Indian stressed assets, who are the investors and what kind of funds are we talking about?
I think what I see of late is that a lot of private equity funds, they have started exploring this space, particularly given the fact that the banks are constant to restructure the existing loan portfolio. NBFCs are not topping up of loan to counter the cycle of this slowdown and and to mitigate the gap in the construction cost. And I think if funding is required, the equity is required in this particular space, given the fact that more than 4 lakh units are not complete, and they are stuck up in various stages of construction. So I think somewhere the recapitalization of a lot of projects is required. And what we see is that post lockdown, we'll see a lot of surge in private equity investors who could take up those assets because these assets, as Santosh rightly mentioned, that it has a lesser cycle of investment. We will have permissions in place, but at the same time, it requires a lot of structuring in a way where you have a lot of customers who may be dissenting, a lot of NBFCs or banks who may not agree on the terms of having second charge on the assets, etc. So the real time consumption could be negotiating between the parties, okay, which of course is probably one-time exercise, but it mitigates a lot of risk of the project, which is taking approval and then completing the project. So the interest level is there, and what we believe is that we started a new fund based on that, and we believe that probably unless and until we see a satisfied customers in real estate, probably it will be impossible for real growth in real estate industry as such.
Absolutely.
So 4 lakh units, the number is huge. Number is huge. You cannot have in any industry this kind of dissatisfied customers. You need to complete projects, satisfy them, and then look for another growth.
Sudeep, if you look at the stressed assets, there are different types of stressed assets. Some are cash flow positive, some are, the juice has all been taken out. There's been a lot of siphoning out of funds. So how does this get impacted when you pick projects?
See, I grade assets, assets are stress assets across various grades, right? So in the A grade, we have a limited amount of inventory projects in the country, and they're very, very handful, the A plus plus. And most of the private equity investors, international investors, are usually gunning for these projects. So look at Brookfield, look at Blackstone, look at BlackRock. So what happens is that the ROI or the interest rates are so tightly connected and so high because the competition between these funds is super, super high. Whereas what we anticipate as MPowered is that stress assets in the category of B to C grade are potential assets that can reap a higher return if invested and brought them up to a minus or a plus category. So for us, it is primarily important to identify B and C grade assets because there is less amount of people, funds looking at those sort of assets from a commercial aspect. B, the entire portfolio, when somebody builds on from a B to A minus, would reap you a better IRR in the next 3 to 4 years, than a particular A grade would.
I hold that thought because I want to come back to you on returns. But sure. Before that, Bhavna, for a long time, what we saw was that, at one point of time, private equity funds were investing heavily in Indian real estate. Then there was a lot of mismanagement in the entire industry. And if you look at the last couple of years, the equity funds have been more like structured debt. It's not really equity at all. What you are bringing, is it equity again?
Yes, absolutely. And that is, I think, going to be the change that would be coming from the perception of investors that, the earlier model may be not so good model, but if you see now, more and more people are looking towards that, yes, equity is the right way to go. So like you rightly said, yeah, that is going to be the change of way we'll be seeing.
But when you bring equity, what needs to change so that the equity participation actually allows you to reap the benefits that you should be reaping?
So, let me answer that on our behalf. See, when we bring in equity into this whole scheme of things of real estate, what we're looking at is a long-term participation with a higher ROI on certain projects. Yeah. Like I mentioned earlier, if you do a stressed asset, can be an A grade, can be a B grade, can be a C grade. If you are able to visualize and have the vision to convert a C grade asset up to a A minus, suddenly there's a huge opportunity cost from an equity perspective in the long term. So I could today as a fund look into these assets and build a portfolio, and then maybe take it to a Blackstone and a BlackRock to kind of offload it on them because they only are into the A grade facility. Right. So from an equity perspective, that's the run and that's the growth that we see because debt is something which is done to it's dealt with completely through and through. So many years people have been rotating debt time and again, but it's like a house of cards, right? So it will come crumbling down one day or another. But equity participation is something where we want to be joint owners, we want to be joint partners, and then take things forward in the right manner and the right direction.
Santosh, for how long does a fund remain invested? Again, I would like you to comment on the equity debt participation, and how long are you intending to remain invested?
Yeah, it depends upon fund to fund. In across the globe, which I have come across, with the fund managers, I have been given to understand that there are different fund, durations, the fund lifetime for which they raise funds. Some funds are being raised for 5 years, some funds are being raised for 10 years. And by that time, they have to go back to their investors with the earned income. Sure. So these are the funds who come and they will tell you on the day one that this is my fund cycle and this is how I have to get back the money. Sometimes what happens that the fund gets merged with the others to give a higher, time period.
Yeah.
So it depends. How have you negotiated and how the fund manager is comfortable with you. He can give you a lot of leverage, in extending. If you're giving him the good return, so he will come to one project and he will get the return, and then he will give you the same fund manager from a different fund that, okay, now I'm ready to fund you the project from this fund, so take the fund from here. So he gives you a complete lifeline. It depends what is his success rate with you.
Yeah. And what is the shortest time that you can remain invested?
So shortest time for a fund, I think it is close to 3 years. I think Anuranjan would be a better person to answer in this. But from a developer perspective, we always want the at least the equity investors to remain investor for a longer period. For the debt investors, we want this cycle to run. But here you need to look at the asset class. Which asset class for which you are borrowing? If you are borrowing for a residential asset, then definitely you would want that particular fund, the debt fund, to go ASAP after selling out your property. Yeah. For a commercial asset, what we generally look at that, since in India, the earlier practice was to sell out the commercial space. Now the practice which is going on is the leasing out in the space and then coming through a REIT. And now what we at Alpha do, generally we lease out the projects and then offload what Sudeep has rightly said, to offload to Blackstone or offload to Morgan Stanley people kind of thing. So they have an asset which they can remain investor for a longer period.
Okay, right. Anuranjan, I'm going to come to you. What are the different categories of assets that you're interested in? And today, our assets are not really, there's been no audit of our assets. There's no proper structure to how much, what its intrinsic value is. What is your starting point? I'd also like you to talk about the debt and equity.
So two parts, the first one is that, see, the asset class which we are focusing right now is residential and commercial. It could be semi-complete, 30%, 40%, maybe any project where approvals are in place and which are stuck up because due to lack of capital. So that is where it is a starting point. Our typical duration is between 3 to 4 years. That is our entry point and exit point. Preferably, we would like to, work with a developer who don't have that kind of stress level in his system. So that means we need to do a complete financial checkup of that guy before really funding it. And if we find that, this guy is really stressed up, because in most of cases, a person who has 10 project, 12 project, and if you become part of one project or two project to bail him out, then it is for sure that you are going to land into problem. So what we prefer in these cases is that we bring our own developer who come as a partner to execute those projects, rebrand the project, and help us in completing the entire cycle of execution, sales, financial closure, and bringing trust in the project. So that is the key aspect. So typically these all projects which we are looking is between 2 lakh square feet to 4 lakh square feet. It can't be very big. So retail projects where, the ultimate exit is through LRD or to, sell it through REIT or something, that we are preferring not to do right now, because the entire rental cycle today is under a big threat. So underlying assumptions of certain class, including retail, is something which we are not preferring. Self-monetization is the key while entering into any project. So whether it's residential or commercial where you can sell those offices asset rather than rent it out and do a LRD or something like that. In terms of equity and debt, my experience has been a little bit bad on that part. So what I personally believe is that whatever money you give, whether you give money in form of debt or whether you give in form of equity or a structured debt, it is a equity for a developer. The reason being, enforcing a security from a developer is biggest concern in this country. So there's no ease of doing business in that part. So our arbitration takes 5 years, 10 years. Our court cases takes huge. So where is that? Whatever penalty clauses we may provide, but unfortunately we will not be able to enforce those. And the security is depreciating over a period of time. Enforcing personal guarantees, enforcing checks, etc. Probably is not a feasible options in this. So if we are carrying a equity risk, we provide our documentation based on that only. So we, rather than we say that we are a debt and take equity risk, we say we are equity and we are taking equity risk and we are taking equity returns. Okay, and we take consequences of all this. So in terms of returns could be anything, because since we are taking equity risk, so we prefer to have those upsides, etc., etc. And let's see, how the stress assets legal cycle. So we are expecting that, lot of regulatory changes are also required to ease out, acquisition of those stress assets. So if that happens, then the acquisition of stress assets will be as simple as acquiring a land. Otherwise, I need to take approval of all customers. I need to take approval of income tax people, taxation authorities, or existing lenders. It's a very, very complex ecosystem right now.
Right.
So we need to provide those simplicity in the system where the acquisition becomes very easy.
Yeah. And I'm going to use that to trigger the next round of our discussion, which is policies and regulations that have come in the last 2 years, and the policies and regulations that are yet to come. So Sudeep and Bhavna, help me understand what are the policies that you think have actually given you the confidence to enter this last mile funding market?
See, according to us, it was very much relevant that, we do business in India in a very structured manner. And real estate so far has been a very unstructured and unorganized sector. With the certain policies and, certain methodologies that the government has used to curb black money, and black money used to be the biggest source of, structuring within the real estate. I see, that's why people need to change. They need to change their mindset. They need to, think from a long-term perspective. I think that structuring has been done well by the government in the last few years. It's a change. It's a very, very big change, because this country used to thrive on that, especially on real estate.
Yeah.
So I think the Benami properties and all the other acts that the government has taken out is a welcome change. And for us, I think
actually 4 big changes: RERA, GST, IBC, and the Benami Act. 4
Correct.
critical acts which have changed the market, right?
Absolutely. And most of these 4 changes have been done to curb black money.
That's right.
So today, if we as a fund are positive about our outlook for India, is just because we welcome that fact that today, at least if I go to any developer or anybody who has a stressed asset, he's talking complete check amounts with me. He's not saying that I need a part A and a part B, or I need mostly cash, because he has to further repay the bank in the same currency, right? So keeping that in mind, I think that's a very, very positive step. It helped us understand. It helped our investors, international investors, understand that we are on the right trajectory when we say that India is on a growth trajectory when it comes to real estate. I see this as just the stress assets that we're talking about is not a COVID scenario. I see the stress was already there. People were just holding on to it. They were not showing it, but everybody's blaming COVID now. because it's the easy escape route.
But it didn't provide an escape route. You had to, they've said that SMA 1 and 2 is not allowed. You had to have been paying your loans. You've been servicing your debt. Only
Correct.
then could you get your moratoriums and your restructuring and so on.
Absolutely.
So I think somewhere the system has cleaned up, right?
Absolutely. Systems cleaned up. Things are out in the open. I think people are now understanding the meaning of actually doing business and how it's to be done. They were just bankrolling. They were just, living on debt. And that's a positive news for us because, for us, the sweet spot of investment is about 100,000 to 200,000 square feet of an asset. And we would like to not just partially take over the asset, but we would even, take over wholly and solely and manage it ourselves because we have various other verticals that which help with leasing, which help in upgrading the asset to a certain level. So we're bringing in all that global expertise into the Indian real estate ecosystem.
Okay. What are the other verticals that you have? The backward forward integrations?
So basically, as you know that, technology has never been a very forefront usage in the real estate industry in India. But where I come from, which is the US, tech has been a very integral part of how this particular industry is growing. Two aspects that we have within our organization on the technology front. One is called Mgage, which is a collaboration app which allows an owner of an asset to get maximum ROI by looking at the holistic view through technology, wherein they do not have to depend on outside assets while their internal employees, if they are traveling, if they are able to make sure that the actual hot seat or actual space is being used or not. And that is not being done right now, and that is a cost center for the real estate market. So this particular technology aspect that we brought into the picture is helping companies realize revenue from day one. They are seeing ROI from day one by implementing this aspect of technology. The other one that we have is M-Auditor, which is a particular COVID compliance app. So it allows the business process re-engineering and opening for any kind of business, may it be retail, may it be warehousing, may it be corporate sector, wherein it will give you a complete checklist of how you need to be safe for your employees and guests. To me, if I have a company, to me, my employees are the first people that I need to care about. And what this app is going to do is every person in that particular space, which is a high traffic or a common area or an office space, it's going to allow you to tell that what measures you need to take in order to have a safety environment. Another aspect that I feel has been a very, very big vacuum in India is the AR/VR technology. Nobody is using augmented reality over here. And I feel that, you can visualize, you can see your CAD drawings, but nobody can actually see what the space is going to look like. That is a technology we are investing a lot of time and money in. And our investors from, North America and Europe, they are thrilled about it because they feel that this is a bang on opportunity for them to invest on that side. So technology is going to play a very big part on the, the verticals that we are looking at.
Great. Santosh, again, I would like you to talk about the enabling environment. What are the enablers in the market today, and what are the enablers that you would like to see? What is not there in the market today?
Jayashree, today's scenario, IBC is playing a very, very good role in terms of those stress assets.
Yeah.
In fact, Alpha has acquired 2 companies through IBC, although the legal process is going on. But this IBC has brought in a very good factor where each and every person is able to see what are the projects which are on the block and whether they can develop it or whether they can't develop it, what are the economic scenario. So these are the things which has brought in. The government has also come out with the RERA provisions which are helping the buyers to understand the project online. Now a developer has to upload all the details about the project online on the RERA. What are the dimensions? What are the program, what the layouts have been approved, what are the approvals are in place. So people are very happy by saying, and when I interact with the customers, I do feel that they have already visited my project on the RERA website, and they are coming with an informed customer that yes, I have seen this thing on the RERA, I have this thing on the RERA. Now, coming back to the problems and the more reforms we would like to see on the methodology of this. Like in the IBC, the major problem which we are facing is the due diligence.
Yeah.
You are not able to do the proper due diligence of the project when you are trying to invest in a project. Since the RP doesn't have the complete information at his disposal.
Right.
Since the promoters are not sharing, since the promoters are also either underground, or they are not trying to cooperate with them. So these are the practical problems which the government has to come out in a code method, that when we can do the due diligence, the authorities need to support in the due diligence processes. At this time, if I go to authority, they are not in a position to help us, that I am as a resolution applicant coming into a project and I want to do a proper due diligence.
Okay.
So there the problem is, so you can't really go to authority that I want to see the file of this and you please show us the file. So there are the problems. So you don't know. Thereafter, the agreements are not, there should be a kind of thing where a developer should be in a position to upload the agreements on a particular website, that these are the agreements which have been executed, which should be available at the time of the due diligence. Right now, when I was dealing in a project where there was 4,700 customers.
Okay.
Now the problem in that was I was having only 100 builder buyer agreement with me. Yeah. And I had to take the call on those 100 builder buyer agreement, whether I should bid for this project or I should not bid for that project. Then what happens in your resolution process, you put a lot of caveats, which generally, the buyers don't understand why are you putting these caveats.
Yeah.
And they keep discussing with you, we have paid the money, so we should be given this, we should be given that. So these are the practical problems which I think in the coming time, the government will come out with the solutions to this, or the authorities will understand the due diligence process of that. Thereafter, even after due diligence, suppose an LOI have been issued to you, still the law has not been amended in a manner which that if I am going with an LOI, which is or the resolution scheme approved by the court to an authority, that now I am the owner of this project, please endorse me in this. They are not interested in that.
Okay.
They don't have the actually regulations to handle it. They say that we are still evolving on this, that how do we actually declare you as a developer in this project?
Right.
So, these are the
NCLT. Is this problem at the NCLT level? Is this problem at the RERA level? Or is this that there is a plethora of agencies? And
these are a lot of agencies, Jayashree. It is not only, I can't blame only IBC. Since the NCLT. NCLT is doing what is it being, what has been brought before them. They can decide based only those information.
Yeah.
I'm trying to speak that whether there should be a platform where each and every developer should be instructed to upload their BBAs also, that this is your BBA, you have to upload in these many times, either 30 days. Like, if I give you an example, in Haryana, now this law is getting implemented very strictly, that where I have to declare on an online platform that how much money I have collected from which buyer in which month and where that money has gone. Now there is one information which is getting collected by the authorities. Yes, this money has been collected and this money has been deposited in this account.
So which authority is collecting this information?
This information right now, Director General Town Country Planning is collecting this information. But again, this information is not visible to me. As a developer, if I am uploading the information, this information is visible to me. If I tomorrow go under the IBC to check any other project, this information is not visible to me.
Right. But will the DTCP make it available to you?
Yes, there would be regulations regarding this where the NCLT should, or there should be a provision in the NCLT bylaws and all that, that the authorities should upload this information or should provide this information to the RP. And through RP, this information should be made available to all the resolution applicants.
Right.
Even if you are going to RERA, there is a provision under Section 8 of the RERA Act that, the RERA authorities has the power for a change of developer.
Right.
If I'm going to bid in a project which is being, where RERA authority is using its powers under the Section 8 of the RERA Act, I don't know the nitty-gritties of the project. On what basis do I bid?
Right.
Since there is no information available in the, common platform where I can go and verify, for investment purpose, even my investors, since when we are in discussion with the fund managers and all that, the investment managers, they ask, okay, what information do you have based on which I can, guarantee you this, okay, I'm ready to invest in your project.
Right.
So you have to provide a lot of caveats right now into your resolution schemes. And if you provide this resolution, this caveat schemes, this may go against you tomorrow. You don't know, since you are taking a business call today, but tomorrow something may come out which you may not be aware today. Then you have to go and fight out a different case. So you are trying to take out the buyers from one litigation and you're putting yourself in the another litigation where investors don't get a comfort.
Right.
Investors needs a comfort that my money goes in, project gets completed and I'm getting my money back.
Right.
If that confidence comes out from these authorities or from these people, then no investor can shy away from this real estate market. Since they understand very well, this is a market which is, is giving a good return, at least in the COVID days.
Right. What kind of, Anuranjan, I'll come to you. What kind of, if this interest has come from investors, clearly there is a return that this kind of investment is giving, the last mile funding, the stressed assets. What kind of returns do you get in stressed assets?
In terms of, the fund as such, and people can expect anywhere between 20 to 25% IRR. But these all are like short-term returns. So, like 1.5 years, 2 years, 3 years, depending on the project cycle, but to get consistent return of, say, anything about 20% for a longer period of time, it's probably not possible because the stress level in real estate is quite high and there's hardly any juice left in the project. If you are able to make that kind of return, that is far better. And it might happen that in this kind of return also, somebody may have to take haircuts.
Right. What is the clash with consumers? There are consumers who waited for between 4 years and 12 years, right?
Yeah.
And that's a long time. I mean, it's half a lifetime for a young adult. Because of this kind of stress among the consumers, I think it becomes very litigious, even entering into a project and trying to find solutions. How do you get around that?
So, that is where our expectation level from government is very high. As Santosh mentioned that, we have quite a cumbersome process from RERA, IBCs and all. Mm-hmm. In between, what we are forgetting is that a consumer is paying EMI every month.
Yeah.
So if any authority is taking 2 years, 3 years, that means a customer has already paid or bear that kind of losses in his. So here, the expectation from government is that, at least the stress level was very high in real estate, and what is coming now and what will be coming now from January onwards or next year onwards, it will be really, really very high.
Yes.
So can we create a single window system to have everything one-stop solution for under RERA, under IBC, that, okay, somebody is coming up with a solution. Let's make this solution feasible and move on. Okay. Individual grievances can be dealt at appropriate time, like compensation to customers. That becomes a probably last priority. But the first priority for every person is how to complete those projects, how to complete those 4 lakh, 5 lakh units, which are incomplete and where customers are bearing EMI every month. you know, and to me, the problem is that, what I see is that while doing acquisition through IBC, it's a very, it gives little bit more security. But 95% of projects are outside IBC right now.
Yeah.
So if I have to route everything through IBC, then it will take at least 5-6 years for entire stress in real estate to go, out of the system.
Yeah.
We need to expedite that process. That's the whole.
Are there cases where you can directly talk to the developers and create, agreements at that level?
So we have done it in past, and it was successfully done. But then, we need to approach all the customers there. In one of our projects where there were more than 200 customers, existing customers, we took approval from them. We approached RERA for change in developer. But that process takes time, Acquisition of stress assets, if it takes more than 1.5 year, it's actually substantial time, energy, and effort,
How much should it take? How much should it take in your view?
Sorry?
For it to become viable, how long should that the acquisition process be?
Ideally, it should not take more than 3-4 months,
3 to 4 months.
I think
it should not take more than 6 months.
So, what I mentioned is that, it should be as simple as acquisition of land, You acquire land and, you have a process of approval. So how we can make this acquisition of stress assets very easy, it should be very simple.
And that, I think, one of our consumers has asked a question. Amit Singh has asked, how can a project undergoing NCLT proceedings get last mile funding? And here I'll come to Sudeep. Sudeep, would you like to answer this consumer? How can the consumer, today I find, and we do a lot of shows with consumer bodies and so on. Many of them they've understood the problems. They are fairly rational in their thinking. And now all they need is that last mile funding to start constructing and complete tower by tower. So how can a buyer body, can they, and it's in NCLT, some of them are not, some of them are with RERA. How can they access the funds? How do they approach you?
See, we as a company, we don't invest into strata sold assets. Right. We like to own our own assets and completely keep it as a fund and utilize the assets. Yeah. So I think probably Anuranjan or Santosh would be better to answer that. Since they are dealing with a similar situation.
Well, let me take it to Santosh. Santosh,
in this, you first, you need to find out a developer, who is ready to complete the project. Any investor would need that confidence that if he is investing money, the project would get completed.
Right.
So you need to find out first of all, if the project is under NCLT, you need to have a RA there. The RA will approach after getting the approvals from the appropriate benches, they will approach the financer. And now the government has also introduced that stress fund, which we call as a Swami fund. Yeah. If you go there and if you say that my project is in NCLT and this person is the developer who is ready to take on, they are ready to invest with you. They just want a clarity that, okay, how their money is secure, If, to take your point, which you had said that if all the juices has been taken out from the project, we have introduced a system called viability gap funding, where we go in the IBC to the buyers, during the process of IBC, we say, look, this is the receivable which we have assumed, and this is the expense. We have a very interactive discussions with the buyer, and we say this much of the amount is further needed to complete the project. If you are interested, then I will invest into it. Yeah. So in fact, I got the support of many buyers in this, and they have really committed extra fund what they had already promised earlier in their agreements. Mm-hmm. So you have to make a project viable, a project bankable. If you want the project to be funded, it can't happen that all the juices has been taken out and you want somebody to invest in the project and the project to get completed. So here buyer has to understand that, I understand that cheating has already, is a past thing that has happened. So you need to move forward. You can keep a claim on that against that developer. You keep fighting that claim wherever you want to fight. But if you want to take possession of your house, you have to come forward. You have to say, yes, I'm ready to pay 500 bucks more, but let my project completed. If your project becomes bankable by that 500 bucks, that any investor, any banker, since there is a lot of opportunity now, and in fact, as per my discussion with the various people, now major these fund houses are coming with these stress funds. Right. You know, they are in the process. This COVID has actually delayed this. Otherwise, they are in the process of raising various funds, which are 1 billion fund, 2 billion fund, to invest in these projects. But they need a person and they need a bankable project. Right. You take the example of Amrapali. Even after instructions of the Supreme Court, people are not paying. How do you expect NBCC to complete that project?
In the Amrapali case, and that's what I was going to raise now. In the Amrapali case, a lot of consumers came to us and said there's a timeline given. The money is supposed to be deposited by all the consumers. If you are in project number 12, your project is going to be completed in the 7th year. And they are expected to give the money today. Their EMIs kick in, complete EMIs kick in, and the project is only going to start in the 7th year. The consumers who have already waited for 12 years, by in about 17 years, I think it's 17, 18 years, the consumer is not bankable. He cannot get a loan, right?
Yeah, there is an option to that. You know, somebody has to represent this in court, since NBC today doesn't have the bandwidth to complete all the projects.
Right.
That's why, and they don't have the source of money.
Yeah.
So somebody has to go and represent. They have to go form an association. Like if the 12th project forms an association. Look, I have this developer. Yeah. We are satisfied with this developer. This is the receivable of the project. We are ready to shell out of this money. I don't think so. The Supreme Court has only one intention, that your money, your project should be delivered to you.
Yeah.
So here the problem comes out with the investors who have just invested in the project to make some money. Their intent is not to take the house.
Yes.
Since we come across with this kind of people who are saying we want our money back.
Yeah.
See, buyers, when I go in IBC or in this private negotiations with the developer, when they come to know that I am negotiating with the developers to acquire a project, they approach me directly that, would you be in a position to refund my money, since I am no more interested into the project, since the project is prices not increasing the way it used to increase in the period from 2004 to 2012.
Right.
You know, so their interest has gone. They want their money back. Please understand one thing here, you can't expect your money back. You should first focus on the project completion. Supreme Court has brought in NBCC when nobody was coming up to develop it.
Right.
If you have a good developer, if you can source a good developer who is ready to share the responsibilities, obviously he will ask a fee for it. If you pay to them and if the project becomes bankable, he would come and complete. You don't have to wait for 7 years. Why you have to wait for 7 years? Since the NBCC doesn't have today the bandwidth to complete the projects.
Right.
There are professional companies who are coming and developing these projects. If you share with the responsibilities with them, I understand the buyer would come and say, look, I have already paid 70%, 80%. Why should pay more now? Now you have to come on the practicals. Right. You have already lost the money. Yeah. So you can expect something if the Supreme Court under the, is able to recover some money, then nobody will come and do a charity in the business. That for sure I can say. Banker would like to earn money from the investment. Developer would like to earn money of his time, and buyer need his house. So they have to compromise on the situation and then move forward.
Anuranjan, when there is a project where, let's assume there were 10 towers and 8 are complete and, in whatever stages they complete, maybe all facilities are not complete, but at least they've got their houses. The last 2 towers are still left. Now, if the consumers of those towers come to you and say that, look, help us restructure this whole thing, would you be able to do that?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a query, I think at least 4 queries here about that.
Of course, that's the whole, idea of the stress fund is that, whatever pending construction cost is there, whether it's a semi-finished, 30% complete, 50% complete, or civil work has completed, finishing work, money is pending. Of course, the project duration doesn't matter. Only thing is that how we go through the entire project cycle, which can create win-win situation for everyone.
Right.
So, of course, we could look
now
at.
I'm going to get into the practical queries that consumers are asking. So whoever wants to answer, please jump in. Sudeep, Anuranjan and Santosh, right? There is one of the queries that come as, what do these funds come with higher interest rates than what banks offer to real estate companies? Now, the thing is that if a consumer group comes to you, what are the 5-6 things that they must be aware of before they can actually approach you? What should they be prepared with?
So, one thing is that, this is a solution money. It's not a money which is available on interest. So, of course, it has a higher IRR. It has its own risk. It's not that it's completely risk-free. So, a developer or consumer body who is approaching any person, for providing solution, they should be ready for that particular cost of capital.
So if you're looking for a solution, you must also be willing to put in your part of the money so that that project can go through completion.
Absolutely.
Right. So
so just there are projects.
Yeah, please go on. Please go ahead, Santosh.
So there are projects. So there are surpluses as more. Their buyers start asking about what about my compensation. Since I came across a project where there is a sufficient receipts than the expenditure. When since this project was with a very big financial institution. He came and said that, can you help me out by the complete execution of the project so that I am able to get out of this project. When I went to the buyers, they started talking to me, okay, completion is fine, but what about our compensation? So I told them, one side, you are not getting your house. A lender is coming, giving you a solution that, okay, boss, let you complete your project. And since I have also lost the money, so at least let me recover this 60-70% of my lending money. If that's something left, then you can think of. The buyer stalled that discussion at that point of time. No, we want first compensation. So these situations also comes in where the buyer needs to understand that, yes, they are very right in asking about the compensation.
Right.
But then first, the target should be completion of the project.
Yes.
And
in
then
fact, for the last 2 years, I have been running this campaign, #complete stuck projects. Magic Bricks has been running this because we believe that today, if the intrinsic value of that project is 100, the value, actual value of it is only about 30, 35. You take it through to completion, at least it may not go up to 100 because there is a tag to it. Let's assume it goes up to 80, 85, 90%. At least whoever gets the money, whether it's the lender, it's the consumer, you get better value, better returns for your money. And we've been saying, do assist whoever's coming to help them complete your projects, complete the stuck projects. There's another thing that I wanted to say, ask Sudeep, maybe you can answer this. How does this process work for projects where funds have been diverted? In many cases, the funds have been diverted, right? How does that work? How do you, there is a liability and so on. You need to be absolved of all that when you bring the last mile funding, right?
Yes, I mean, for us, it is as simple as, the value of the asset, whether it is the funds have been diverted or not diverted. We would, evaluate the asset at a certain price point, which would be enticing for us and for the consumers as well. It helps out, the consumers as well. So like Santosh rightly said, I mean, it is all about finding a solution to a problem which already exists. Now, there are various permutation and combinations that various funds can use, depending on their own, parameters and whatever checklist that they have. So this, I wouldn't, probably talk about only one particular strategy or two, but, there are various permutation and combinations.
And in all these cases, you involve either the NCLT or the RERA, is it?
Yes. Yes.
In all cases.
Correct.
Yeah. So that answers the question, how do you ensure that when this money comes in, it is used for the project and not for penalty payments and, the salaries and things like that? Clearly, if it's with RERA, then the funds are used only for completion of projects, right?
Correct.
There is one more question, and I think after this, I'm going to go into the technology part of it, just last two questions. One question I've got is, in Amrapali case, the court has been begging for Swami funds from the government. Why can't the private funds chip in these cases? What stops you? What are the barriers there?
Who will take the responsibility of returning the money back to them?
Nicely put, Santosh.
Who will take the responsibility to let the money go back to them? Since if the NBC is putting money, ultimately this should be taken. Do you want the government to subsidize that?
Yeah.
Government is not going to subsidize that. So that is the problem. Private people are not willing to come in. And the decision taken by in that where this project was funded by many financiers who given the home loans and all that.
Yeah.
So in my personal opinion, this step taken by the Supreme Court, where they nullified all the mortgages created by the buyers to be null and void.
Yeah.
So that means the money disbursed by them is today unsecured money.
Yeah.
And it has become an unsecured loan. RBI is saying provide for it so that their cost goes up and there is no way they can recover their money. Do you think that the private money would come in this situation?
Okay. And that needs to be sorted out before. You've got your answer there, Deepak. And now I'm going to ask about, all of you come with money. You also come with many, different kinds of expertise. What is the role of technology today? Our construction technologies have been pretty archaic across India. We have a lot of on-site construction. There's hardly any off-site construction, assembled construction. Will you be bringing new practices, technology, so that our construction cycle can come to, say, about 2 years from, say, 4 years or something like that?
I think the year
from our aspect, we want to develop a lot of prop tech solutions which are missing in this country today. Yeah. Even from a startup standpoint, I've been an avid angel investor, and so has Bhavna with startups. But when we actually ventured into India, the first thought that we had was to acquire some prop tech companies and see what solutions are being offered. But we couldn't find many. And I think, the entrepreneurs from that aspect, whether they are from the IITs of the world or, the IIMs, they need to look at PropTech as a solution and create, solutions to the problems that we all face in this country. Technology can be inbuilt within India. We don't necessarily do not need to, outsource it from other countries. So just like what the Prime Minister is talking about, so being Atmanirbhar today for the country, it would be a future-centric value from a technology standpoint. So we are incubating a couple of startups in-house where we are looking at various levels and grades of technology, whether it's the documentation side, whether it's the construction side, and how we can make life simple for a lot of builders and give the same information via technology through an app, maybe to the consumers as to the updates of the entire project.
Like, which is just going back on what Santosh was mentioning, that there's no real one platform which allows you to see all of the documentation, all of the agreements. Now, if that is a huge opportunity for a tech company, coming from this domain, to build something which can be, intermingled with the government, and it can give the visibility to the developers and the consumers to actually see that, yes, if I'm investing, what stage my investment is going, what stage the project is at. And I think this is a great opportunity for, to come into this industry.
Absolutely. Anuranjan, what do you think? What kind of technologies do you, your wish list?
I think, First is the underwriting. Technology can help us in large underwriting, and this could be a game changer for early dispersal, early, and the other thing is the under the project execution also, since the stress fund always comes with the complete financial closure and permissions are there. The only thing which is required now is execution. Okay, execution of project. So how we can, complete the project within the desired timeline, and how we can expedite a lot of things. Of course, at the same time, uh, technology is also required from government angle also, where the approval process during the construction or post construction, that comes probably on faster basis. So this can change completely. The, the lesser the project timelines, the efficient, there is a huge cost saving just because of that. So,
Santosh, your wish list?
Jayashree, I have a threefold in this. The technology in real construction.
Yeah.
India is lagging a lot behind. If you go and see the developments, what's happening in New York and especially in the Gulf countries, we are lagging behind on that. India needs a lot of investment in those technologies, where the timeline, the major problem today in the industry is the timeline. You are taking 4 or 5 years to complete a project. So if they are able to reduce by the technology that timeline, this will help this sector a lot. The second things which Anuranjan very rightly said is the approval process. Even though we are talking about the single window and all that, this is not online, and practically this is not single window. You have to run pillar to post to get it.
Sure.
So these are the practical problems which has to be sorted out over a period of time. And the third comes out on your sale. I believe that in India now people are using a lot of technology to sell their product. And especially in this lockdown, India has used to the fullest position. I think you would agree that Magic Bricks was also doing a lot of online sale and all that. Even the people have now come across to us who are telling us to develop AR for our projects. There are people who are approaching us that, okay, what do you visualize as a project? We are ready to put it on a technology platform. Actually, we are also in touch with a couple of the people who are giving us the solution to give this. They are ready to give you the complete solution. So India is, I think, is mainly at this time in the need is on the two side, which is on the construction side and on the approval side, where something should, government is doing its bit. It's taking time since India is not a small country where they can do it very easily. So if these things happens, like, government has come out with the online land records, but many states is not able to do. These are not being updated as of now, since India is lagging on that. So I think the government needs to do a little bit more on that. Thereafter, approvals, it has to be, it has to be online, but there needs to be more transparency in that. Government is working on that as per my understanding with them, but yes, there are its own challenges which needs to be sorted out, and it will take some time. And I think on sale front, India is doing well. There could be more opportunities which we are looking at, that if something comes up. So this is what my wish list is, that the real developments need on the execution side, and that will reduce the project cycle, and you would be in a position to sell more.
And there you are. There's a lot of, there are many funds that are waiting. India is an attractive proposition. Even residential real estate, which is one of the most contentious parts of Indian real estate, there are takers for it. The need is for consumers, for developers, for bankers, and for governments to understand that you have to make it viable. You have to make it possible for the funds to come and work as management entities, bring the funds, complete the projects, exit, and then move on to the next one. If with so much funds waiting in the wings, there's no reason why our projects should be lingering on, begging for funds from governments, from banks, who are little able to give it. It's just that we have to get all the pieces of the jigsaw in place so that it moves faster. Thank you so much for watching the Property Show. I'm Jayashree Kurup, and I've had a very, very exciting discussion with an august panel. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.